Have you ever seen a man stripped of his dignity in 45 minutes simply because of where he was born? That question hung in the air like a dare as cameras flickered to life across Gate 18 at Logan International Airport. 42-year-old Adrian Cole, dressed in charcoal chinos and a navy blazer that bore the faint sheen of fine wool, sat primly in seat 1A of Flight 632 to Seattle. In his hand was a champagne flute. On his lap, a leather portfolio embossed with the logo of Zenith Industries, the multi-billion-dollar conglomerate he led. To anyone watching, Adrian embodied success. Yet within moments, he would be reduced to just another passenger. It began when flight attendant Emily Carter descended the aisle toward him, tablet in hand. "Sir, this section is reserved for our premium guests," she said, her voice carrying a practiced firmness. The hum of pre-boarding chatter faded as a small crowd formed. Emily's crisp uniform and perfect smile masked the impatience flickering in her eyes. Adrian looked up without a flicker of surprise. "My boarding pass says 1A, first class," he replied, lifting his right hand to reveal a digital pass on his phone. The screen glowed. "Seat 1A, first class. Paid 21 days ago." Emily's lips pressed into a thin line. "Let me see some identification." Her tone implied not verification, but suspicion. A dozen phones were suddenly pointed at Adrian, eager to capture the unfolding drama. He produced his passport and a titanium membership card stamped with a 10-year platinum status badge. "Here, my ID and my elite status card. I've been platinum for 7 straight years," he said evenly. A gentleman in 2B, an older white man with a silver beard, leaned forward. "Son, you sure you didn't mean coach? Why make such a fuss?" His words dripped condescension. Emily's shoulders squared. "We get mistakes all the time with people unfamiliar with our booking system. Please gather your carry-on and move to your assigned seat and coach." The condescension drifted away, leaving a palpable chill. Adrian's jaw tightened. Instead of rising, he tapped his phone's screen. "I'll record this for my own records," he said softly, pressing record. "Please put that phone away," Emily snapped. "Am I permitted to document discrimination?" he asked, his voice low but clear. The cabin grew silent. Emily's cheeks flushed slightly as she fumbled with her radio. "Ground security, please come to Gate 18. Passenger refusing to comply," she crackled. Within minutes, 2 uniformed officers appeared. Officer David Lee, a veteran known for his calm demeanor, and Officer Karen Liu, newer to the unit, but quick to follow protocol. They approached Adrian with professional courtesy that contrasted sharply with the flight crew's impatience. "Sir, we need to verify your seat assignment," Officer Lee said, glancing at the boarding pass and then at Adrian. "Just step off the plane for a moment." Adrian rose, briefcase in hand. "Of course," he replied, happy to clear this up. A hush fell over first class as he descended the steps. Live streamer at FlightLens had already gone live, her tweet racking up hundreds of retweets. "Black executive denied first class. Witness live at Gate 18. Airline discrimination." A cluster of passengers followed Adrian onto the jet bridge, their phones out. Some whispered, others simply recorded in stunned silence. The elder man from 2B muttered, "This is out of hand," while a younger woman in 3C voiced what many felt. Why won't they just check his pass? Outside the aircraft door, Gate Supervisor Clara Thompson arrived briskly, her airport-issue blazer crisp. Having climbed from ramp agent to management over 15 years, Clara prided herself on being unflappable. Yet today she appeared unsettled. "Officer Lee, what's the situation?" Clara asked. Lee handed her the boarding pass and Adrian's passport. "Everything appears in order," he reported quietly. "He's paid for first class. I don't see any discrepancy." Emily hovered nearby, arms crossed. "The system shows he booked economy," she said. Clara's brow furrowed. "Did you refresh your application, Emily?" Emily tapped her tablet, her voice tight. "I've tried twice. It keeps reverting to coach." Clara looked at Adrian. "Sir, I apologize. Let me speak with ground control and get this sorted." She turned to the officers. "Could you escort him back inside while I clear this up?" Adrian nodded courteously, though his eyes betrayed annoyance. "Thank you," he said, stepping aside for Officer Liu to guide him back into the cabin. As if on cue, At Flight Lens's follower count spiked. The terminal's monitors flashed a breaking news crawl. Boarding dispute at Boston Airport, view live. A handful of travel bloggers and bystanders pressed closer, curious about the tension. Murmurs rose. What's his name? Is he suing them? Airline in trouble again. Back in first class, Adrian stood beside his empty seat, briefcase at his feet. Emily finally spoke, voice softer now. Sir, please remain here for just a moment. Clara is resolving it. Adrian's posture stayed relaxed. Emily, I appreciate that. I simply wish to board on time. Moments later, Captain Michael Hayes emerged, his uniform immaculate, voice carrying authority. He surveyed the scene and planted himself at the cabin door. Good afternoon, he began, eyes on Adrian. I'm Captain Hayes. Can you tell me what's going on? Emily gave her version, emphasizing confusion. Hayes turned to Adrian. Sir, I'll need to verify with Clara, but if you're in the right seat, I'll personally apologize. Adrian inclined his head. Thank you, Captain. That's all I ask. Hayes pressed his headset against his shoulder. Clara, what's the verdict? Clara's voice crackled in his earpiece. Captain, I'm still waiting on confirmation from our system admin. It should be minutes. Hayes sighed, rubbing his temples. Gentlemen, ladies, please bear with us. We'll have this sorted shortly. He looked at Emily, giving her a subtle nod. Back off. Emily stepped aside, allowing Clara to shuffle through her tablet. The tension dissipated as passengers leaned back, smartphones lowered but still recording expectantly. In that breathless silence, Adrian checked his watch. 2:47 p.m. Exactly 13 minutes had passed since boarding began. Finally, Clara's eyes widened. Captain, I see the problem. There was a glitch in our roster. This gentleman is indeed confirmed for 1A. I apologize. Please allow him to board. A ripple of relief swept through first class. Emily approached Adrian, visibly contrite. I sincerely apologize, Mr. Cole. Please, have a seat. Adrian nodded curtly, accepting his briefcase and stepping into 1A. As he buckled in, the cabin erupted into soft applause. His calm demeanor contrasted sharply with the chaos he had just endured. Even the older man in 2B offered a grudging nod of respect. But Adrian knew the real story was only beginning. Within the next 32 minutes, social media would transform this personal humiliation into a corporate crisis, one that would reshape the airline's policies forever. And it would all unfold on Flight 632, the very plane that was now 15 minutes behind schedule. As the door closed and the cabin lights dimmed for pushback, Adrian flipped open his portfolio and tapped his phone. At Zenith Corp, please prepare my statement, he murmured. We leave in 45 minutes. Let the real flight begin. The cabin lights shifted to boarding ambient, and Flight 632 remained motionless at Gate 18. In the wake of that first confrontation, a charged silence enveloped first class. From my vantage point, admittedly biased, I'll admit, I sensed more than just delayed departure. I felt a collective tension, as if every passenger was holding its breath, waiting to see whether dignity or bureaucracy would prevail. Adrian Cole sat back in 1A, briefcase now secure on the floor, but his eyes never left the cabin door. I'd be lying if I said I wasn't impressed by his composure. When so many of us would have fumed, he chose silence and documentation. A hush fell as Captain Hayes' voice came over the intercom. Ladies and gentlemen, we apologize for the delay. We are resolving a seating discrepancy and will depart shortly. Sidelong glances exchanged among passengers betrayed skepticism. We'd heard that before on countless flights, but everyone here had just witnessed something extraordinary. Moments later, Adrian activated his in-flight Wi-Fi and quietly began typing a statement to Zenith Industries' media relations team. One could almost see the gears turning in his mind. What's the best way to frame this? I wondered. Personally, I think I would have lashed out publicly, tweeted furiously, posted a video rant. But Adrian knew that measured responses wield greater power. By the time the servers hummed his draft report to the corporate office, the hashtag number Airline Injustice was already trending on multiple platforms. 20 minutes ticked by without movement. The flight attendant circulated lemonade and warm towels while casting wary glances at Adrian's unaffected calm. It struck me as a bit theatrical. Surely he could have taken coach and filed a complaint later, But that wasn't his style. He understood that the optics of immediate resistance would spark broader change. I respect that kind of strategic courage, though I might have chafed at the thought of giving up my Sunday afternoon in a cramped economy seat. At 3:12 p.m., a crisp chime signaled an incoming call on Adrian's secure line. He answered with a simple, "Cole here," eyes flicking to the cabin monitors, displaying lateral camera feeds of still boarding passengers, and back to his phone. Whispers swept through the cabin as travelers peeked at his screen. Board meeting convened. Urgent call. Even from my aisle seat, I caught the astonished stares. There was something deeply satisfying in seeing a power dynamic invert so sharply, from "you don't belong here" to "your authority compels us to listen." Within minutes, the boarding gate's announcement system crackled to life with a voice more authoritative than Emily's had been. "This is Logan Airport Operations. Atlantic Airways headquarters has just issued an instruction. Maintain Mr. Cole in first class. Boarding will resume in 10 minutes. The cabin erupted in quiet murmurs. I never thought I'd applaud for an airline announcer, but there it was, an applause born of vindication. Frankly, I felt a surge of relief mixed with indignation. Why had it taken this long? And why had the gate staff so casually ignored documented facts? 10 more minutes of shuffling feet and apology announcements passed. Adrian used the time to rise and personally thank those passengers who had vocally defended him, particularly Dr. Voss in 3B, whose earlier interjection had sparked others' voices. His gratitude was genuine. To me, that moment revealed the core of his leadership style. Not grandstanding, but acknowledging allies. It's a subtlety I admire, though admittedly I lack the restraint to play the long game as he did. Finally, the captain's door swung open. Captain Hayes entered, arms spread in conciliatory fashion. "Mr. Cole, on behalf of Atlantic Airways, I offer my sincerest apologies for this ordeal," he said, voice sincere enough that you could see a couple of passengers exchanging raised eyebrows. "Your seat and your peace of mind were ours to guard. We failed." The cabin exhaled collectively, and I'll confess I felt a small, triumphant smile tug at my lips. Justice, however belated, had arrived. Adrian inclined his head. "Thank you, Captain. I appreciate the acknowledgement. What matters now is that this never happens again. To anyone." He gestured toward the first-class cabin, as if the dozen seats were more than leather and aluminum. They were symbols of respect and equal treatment. At that moment, the flight crew's posture shifted from defensive to reflective. You could almost read Emily's regret, Captain Hayes's shame, Clara's relief, transformation in real time. As the cabin doors finally closed and the ground crew cleared away the jet bridge, Adrian returned to his seat. He tapped his phone one last time, then slipped it into his portfolio. A moment later, the engines roared to life and the aircraft began its taxi. Over the whine of the APU, I heard him mutter to himself, so low I almost missed it, but clear enough. 45 minutes. Seemed like a lifetime. It struck me then how time, when stretched by injustice, is measured differently. A half hour can feel like an eternity, but it can also become the crucible for profound change. By the time Flight 632 lifted off, the cabin atmosphere had transformed. Passengers no longer fidgeted anxiously. Instead, they sat forward, as though bearing witness to something larger than a simple trip to Seattle. Many scrolled through their social feeds, retweeting, sharing, commenting. For my part, I closed my eyes for just a second and reflected. If I endured such treatment, would I have had the clarity to see beyond my own indignation to the bigger picture Adrian saw? Probably not. But witnessing his poise and the airline's eventual contrition reminded me that sometimes lasting change hinges not on fury, but on unwavering resolve and strategic vision. And so, as the city lights of Boston faded beneath us, I settled in for the flight, certain that these next 1,500 miles would carry more than passengers. They would carry a message. Dignity matters, and it can never be denied without consequences. As Flight 632 soared over the rolling hills of New England, the cabin settled into a reflective hush. I glanced around. Soft murmurs replaced earlier tension, and many passengers stared out the window, as if savoring the night sky in newfound solidarity. From 1A to 3C, strangers shared knowing smiles. We had lived through a moment none of us would forget, and one that would ripple far beyond these cabin walls. Adrian Cole remained seated, though he no longer typed on his phone. Instead, he gazed at the city lights receding beneath us, arms folded over his chest. In that posture, relaxed yet watchful, he seemed less the CEO of a massive corporation and more a guardian of principle. I remembered his words in Chapter 2. What matters now is that this never happens again, to anyone. And now, on the final leg of this journey, I sensed that promise unfolding. Moments later, Captain Hayes's calm voice came over the intercom. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is your captain speaking. Thank you for your patience and understanding. We are cruising at 36,000 feet and expect a smooth flight to Seattle. On behalf of Atlantic Airways, I offer my deepest apologies for the inconvenience and distress earlier." A ripple of applause broke out, sincere, unprompted. I joined in, my own hands clapping so vigorously they nearly woke the passenger beside me. But Adrian wasn't satisfied with mere apology. Minutes after the captain's announcement, he tapped his wine glass gently, summoning attention. "Ladies and gentlemen," he began, voice warm and clear, "I want to thank each of you for your support today. You spoke up, you recorded, you refused to look away. That courage was as important as any corporate policy." Heads turned, eyes brightened. It was remarkable. A business leader extending gratitude to strangers on a plane, yet entirely fitting in that charged moment. He continued, "Tonight we demonstrated the power of collective action. But our work doesn't end here. In the coming days, I will be working directly with Atlantic Airways leadership to enact binding policy changes, measures that guarantee fair treatment for every passenger, regardless of appearance, attire, or background." A gentle cheer rose. Dr. Voss, 2 rows back, gave him a thumbs up, and a young couple in 4B exchanged an inspired look. I felt a surge of optimism. Here was a man not only demanding change, but offering his partnership to implement it. In private boardrooms, that kind of hands-on collaboration between corporate titan and airline seldom happens. Yet Adrian had transformed hostility into opportunity, humiliation into reform. About 40 minutes before descent, the cabin lights dimmed and Dignity in the Skies cards were distributed. An unexpected gesture. Each card outlined a new passenger bill of rights, prompt verification of documentation, an independent review panel for disputes, and a zero-tolerance policy on discrimination, with swift corrective action. It was a tangible symbol of the promises Loft 632 had birthed, a traveling manifesto for respect. Passengers leaned in, reading the fine print. Many nodded appreciatively. A few snapped photos for social media. I admit I teared up, moved by how a single incident in Boston could catalyze such concrete commitments. It felt as if we were all part of something greater, an unfolding story of justice. Moments later, flight attendant Emily Carter quietly approached Adrian's seat. The rush of earlier had softened her expression. She offered him a folder, its cover embossed. Atlantic Airways, Implementation Plan. Inside lay a timeline, assigned task forces and accountability checkpoints, her handwriting marking the margin under immediate corrective actions. She spoke in a low voice. "Mr. Cole, thank you for standing your ground. We'll make sure these measures take root." Adrian accepted the folder with a nod and offered Emily a genuine smile. "It was your colleague's oversight, not yours," he said kindly. "Thank you for listening." That gesture, reaching across the divide, was perhaps the most impactful moment of all. It showed that reconciliation and progress hinged not just on policy, but on human empathy. The seatbelt sign flashed on as descent began. Outside, the lights of the Pacific Northwest glimmered through the clouds. The murmurs of passengers turned to quiet conversations, sharing names, exchanging emails, promising to hold Atlantic Airways to its word. A ripple of purpose passed through first class. We were no longer mere travelers, but witnesses and participants in systemic change. At 9:12 p.m. local time, Flight 632 touched down smoothly at Seattle-Tacoma International. As we taxied to the gate, Adrian stood and addressed the cabin one final time. "This journey started with an injustice, but it ends with a commitment. to each other, and to a better standard of respect, he said. Thank you for your courage, your witness, and your belief that dignity belongs to everyone. Applause filled the cabin once more, genuine and heartfelt. Stepping onto the jet bridge, I felt an unfamiliar blend of hope and responsibility. Around me, fellow passengers lingered, Emily exchanging a respectful nod with Adrian Doctor, Voss animatedly describing her vision for hospital policy changes, and even the older gentleman from 2B chatting amicably with cabin crew. The tension of hours before had melted into collaborative purpose. In the terminal's bright lights, I paused to reflect. A black executive had been denied his seat, and in resisting, he had rewritten the rules. That transformation, from humiliation to empowerment, was the true story, one that would echo far beyond Flight 632. As I retrieved my luggage, I noticed the boarding monitor scrolling a headline. Atlantic Airways rolls out, dignity in the skies. Initiative after viral discrimination incident. Beneath it, a ticker highlighted stock gains driven by consumer approval. Walking toward arrivals, I pulled out my phone and drafted a post. Today, I flew with witnesses to change. Dignity isn't optional, it's guaranteed. Dignity in the skies. I hit post and felt a sense of closure, yet also a spark of ongoing action. In the next days and weeks, Atlantic Airways would face scrutiny and hold itself to a higher standard. For passengers everywhere, the message was clear. Our voices matter, and injustice cannot stand unchallenged. As I stepped into the cool Seattle night, I thought of Adrian Cole's final words and allowed myself a quiet smile. Sometimes the most profound journeys happen in the spaces between our expectations and our resolve. Flight 632? It was more than a flight. It was a testament that in as little as 45 minutes, dignity can be reclaimed, systems can be reformed, and a single person's steadfast calm can ignite extraordinary change.